Welcome to Mingola. We've got 5 brain teasers for you today. You'll have just 5 seconds to solve each one. Pause the video if you need extra time, and be sure to share your answers in the comments. Let's get started. Late one evening, a small house on a quiet suburban street suddenly burst into flames. Within minutes, firefighters arrived as neighbors gathered outside, watching anxiously and hoping the elderly homeowner had escaped. Among them were David and his wife, Emma. "I really hope George made it out," Emma said. "I saw him taking out the garbage less than an hour ago." David frowned. If he was asleep in the back bedroom, he may never have known what happened. Everyone knew George's wife was away visiting relatives, leaving him home alone. A few moments later, a firefighter emerged carrying a small birdcage. Inside, George's pet canary chirped loudly as if nothing had happened. "Could you look after him until Mrs. Turner gets back?" the firefighter asked, handing the cage to David. "Of course," David replied. He couldn't help shaking his head. George always kept the canary in his bedroom, and the little bird sang so loudly that it often kept the neighbors awake at night. Moments later, paramedics wheeled a stretcher out of the house. George had been found dead in his bed. Emma looked away. "What a terrible way to die," she said quietly. "He must have died from smoke inhalation." David kept staring at the canary. "No," he said after a moment. "George was already dead before the fire started." Question: how did David know? David realized the truth because the canary was still alive. Canaries are extremely sensitive to smoke and poisonous gases. They were often carried into coal mines because they would succumb to toxic fumes long before the miners, serving as an early warning system. If the bedroom had filled with enough smoke to kill George, the canary, kept in the very same room, would almost certainly have died first. Since the bird was completely unharmed, David concluded that George had already been dead before the fire began. Police later confirmed his suspicion. George had been murdered, and the fire was deliberately set afterward to destroy the evidence. His wife was eventually arrested after confessing to the murder. "While on my way to work, I heard a tremendous explosion and saw a man propelled hundreds of feet through the air. The incident was witnessed by numerous people, yet no one came to his aid. Why didn't anyone help?" Hint: did the man die in the explosion? No. Did the man know the explosion was about to happen? Yes. Had he experienced this before? Yes. The man was a professional human cannonball, and the explosion was part of the performance. Oliver had always wanted an exquisitely crafted, highly accurate clock. He searched until he found a renowned clockmaker who promised accuracy to within 1 second per month. Thrilled, Oliver bought the clock and hung it in the center of his study. A month later, he returned, furious. The clock had fallen behind by more than 3 minutes. The clockmaker listened calmly, then said, "But you never told me where your study is located. Why would the location matter?" Hint: would moving the clock to another wall in the study have solved the problem? No. Would the clock have kept perfect time if it had remained in the clockmaker's shop? Yes. Does the type of clock matter? Yes. Oliver's study wasn't in a house. It was aboard his ship. Because the clock was a pendulum clock, the constant rolling and pitching of the ship caused the pendulum to swing irregularly, making the clock lose time. Had it remained on solid ground, it would have kept accurate time. A man and a woman walked into a restaurant and took a seat at one of the tables. After carefully looking through the menu, they discussed several dishes with the waiter and decided exactly what they wanted. Once they had finished, they paid the bill and left the restaurant. Strangely, neither of them had eaten a single bite, and they were just as hungry when they walked out. Question: why did they leave without eating? The couple wasn't there to have a meal. They were planning their wedding reception. They met with the restaurant to choose the dishes that would be served to their guests, then paid a deposit to reserve the venue and finalize the menu before leaving. Ethan struck an acquaintance on the head with a heavy object, killing him instantly. He made no attempt to conceal the body or destroy any evidence. Instead, he simply left the scene. The very next morning, Ethan returned to the victim's home with several mutual friends. When they arrived, they discovered that the police had already found the body and were loading it into an ambulance. Although it could have made him an obvious suspect, Ethan openly admitted that he had been alone with the victim the previous day. Question: why would he willingly reveal that information? Hint: did Ethan try to hide the crime in any way? No. Could he have carefully planned the murder to make it appear accidental? No. Did Ethan want to avoid becoming a suspect? Yes. Shortly after Ethan killed the victim, a devastating earthquake struck the area. Investigators believe the victim had died as a result of the earthquake rather than from murder. Confident that the natural disaster had concealed the true cause of death, Ethan saw no reason to hide the fact that he had been with the victim the previous day.